K Cooks. Underestimated and still I made it. In the book of hard knocks, I'm highly educated. Nobody chose me, looked over, but still dedicated. Played in the league for 13, I ain't gotta be favorite. 2 Super Bowls, Honolulu.
Yeah, we got a new intro. What about that? My guy, K Cooks. It's actually my best friend that did that for me, so I was super excited about that. This week was difficult. It was difficult to figure out kind of what I wanted to talk about because this was supposed to be an off week. Obviously, when you have things that go on that stir something in you or that make you want to give your opinion, I believe, first of all, it's rare for me because I get to talk on TV. And so in having that opportunity, I mostly get to speak about everything that I want to. But this one was different. I didn't necessarily get an opportunity to get my thoughts out about Colin Kaepernick, about the workout, about how I view the NFL's intentions, how I see it. Was it a genuine move to give Colin Kaepernick an opportunity to work out? Did Colin Kaepernick spit in the NFL's face by the way he responded to their offer, to this setup? And so I think it was good for me to not get an opportunity to talk about it. I think it was good for me to be able to sit back and watch things unfold and hear different opinions and different perceptions of what happened. And then as I watched those things clear out, though, I started to see the fallout of each and everything that involves this man. Because you have the two sides, right? Because when this was going on, you had to choose a side. Either you were with the protest and with Colin Kaepernick and believe that what he was doing was just, that what he was doing for social injustice needed to be done, or you were on the other side that you didn't feel like it needed to be done. You didn't agree with the cause, but you most certainly didn't agree with the way he went about protesting. And when those lines were drawn because it couldn't be just a black and white thing. It turned into, and I don't mean that by the colors, I mean that by black and white, like you're against social injustice, so you stand against it. Or in his case, you kneel against it. It became black and blue. And some of those things were because of Colin. Some of those things were because of some of the things he said. But if you were on my side of it, which was the side of wearing a Colin Kaepernick jersey on Mike and Mike, not only in support of what he was protesting, in support of the actual protest and the way that he was going about it, because this was a man that was now being crucified and vilified for doing nothing wrong, for not breaking NFL rules, for not breaking the rules of this country, for actually doing something that this country was built on, that this country stood on. And so in August of 2016, when he takes this knee, I often go back to it and think to myself, did he know it would become this? Then did Colin Kaepernick think that he could lose his livelihood, lose his career behind this? And I often look back at that season. 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. When you look at some of these starting quarterbacks or backup quarterbacks and you look at the actual play, you say to yourself, this man, the talent, deserves to be in the NFL. But as you watch it unfold, you realize that it wasn't just about that. It wasn't just about, did he have enough talent to do it? And so now then you see that as these people pick sides, you start to see, okay, well, this guy stands here. Well, Jerry Jones feels this, this executive feels this executive or this owner has thrown a party or is dealing in something that deals with the other side of what Colin Kaepernick is protesting or doing. And so now it becomes the thing to where players, execs, teammates, friends, you're all pitted against each other. And I just don't know if that was the reason he started it, but that's where we were. And then you fast forward 3 years and he doesn't play. He also doesn't talk very much. And so people are on the side of it saying, I wish Colin Kaepernick said more. I wish he stood up for all of the people that are standing up for him. When you see Reid dealing with certain things, you say, man, I wish he would stand up and say something. I wish we knew what his plan was. I don't believe his plan was to become this. I don't believe it was to become martyred. I don't believe it was to become the leader of a revolution or of a civil rights activism or to be It wasn't to be Martin Luther King to me. It wasn't to be Malcolm X. It was that he had a passion for something. He felt like he had an opportunity to speak up for some people who were less represented, and that's what he wanted to do. So he steps out and he does this thing, and then we chose to make him the champion of a movement. And with that, we felt like he had to be ours. He had to be something that we were able to control, that we were able to puppet. But why should we do that when we didn't want the NFL to do that to him? Because he took this stand and he created this narrative, and the narrative was that brown young men, that black young men were being mowed down in the streets, were being devalued. The lives of those with the smallest voices weren't being heard, weren't being taken seriously. But it wasn't that he had to play football or do this. He felt he could do both. And as the narrative started to change to protest, as the narrative started to change to the national anthem, now the conversation got farther and farther away from where it started, because where it started was social injustice. And so now that that's all we focus on, and different examples are being given as to what he could be doing and how people could be standing with him. And now you see other people struggle and try to deal with this, and you wonder, when is Colin Kaepernick going to say something? And we wonder this for 3 years, and then it goes away. There was no questions being asked of me on TV when Mitchell Trubisky isn't playing well, when Cam Newton goes down and Kyle Allen steps up. When all of these things start to happen, we aren't always or constantly being asked, are they going to bring Colin Kaepernick in for a workout? Because finally we understood that they weren't. And then all of a sudden it's a Wednesday morning and I wake up and you hear the NFL is putting on a workout for Colin Kaepernick, and they have teams who have called and said that they want to bring him in. They want to kick the tires on Colin Kaepernick. They want to interview him. They want to know what he has going on going forward, because there's a huge possibility that he can now be on somebody's team. And honestly, that struck me as strange. Why now? You don't do this for anyone else. Now, we all know that Colin Kaepernick is different, but this is something we've never seen. All of a sudden, out of the blue, after 3 years, you want to make us believe that people have called and they want to see this man, but they're scared to bring him in. They're scared to be the team that brings him in and doesn't sign him, or brings him in and it doesn't work. So you, out of the goodness of your heart, are going to go out and give him an opportunity to showcase his skills. Skills, by the way, that many believe aren't the reason that he's not playing. And so you have this set up, and you have it set up on a Saturday. And the first thing I think is, why Saturday? Execs and coaches and owners, these guys are busy on Saturday. They're getting prepared to play games. They're getting prepared to try to go out and win, which is the job they are paid to do. That's what they are working towards every single day. And so on a Saturday, the day before these things happen, are you going to send out important people to see Colin Kaepernick, a guy you haven't thought about or thought enough of to bring in for 3 years? All of a sudden, now you're going to bring him in? It struck me as strange. But Colin Kaepernick, against some of the voices in his camp, said, you know what? This is something I want to do. This is something I have an opportunity to do. So we are going to do it. We're not going to back down. We're not going to back away from this. We want the people to be able to see me have an opportunity to go out and showcase skills that say I belong to be in this league. So we get closer and closer to the day, and then you hear about waivers that you don't normally sign to play. Waivers that are for future employees that take away Colin Kaepernick's ability to litigate as things go forward. And then you say to yourself, well, that's different. And then now Colin Kaepernick, moments before it's time to show up, he doesn't show. And so now the NFL releases a statement that there were 25 teams here waiting. Everybody was here for you, and you move it 51 miles away. And so now only 8 people are able to attend And then you get up afterwards and you show that you have the skills. And it's reported that he can do it still, that Colin Kaepernick still has the arm that is elite, was the quote that was used. And so now all of a sudden, he has an opportunity to address the public, which we hadn't seen. And this is after we see him show up in the Kunta Kinte shirt. This is still the guy with the afro. There's still the guy that says, okay, the 32 teams, the 32 owners, we are now waiting on you. The ball is in your court. We did what we had to do. I showed you what I had to show you. Now it's time to pick me up. And so to us who are on his side, you say, you know what? That makes sense. You came out, you showed him what you could do. You didn't sign a waiver that you felt like would put you in a bad position moving forward. That makes sense. But now it's time for the rest of the world to judge you. And for most people who are already on that side of supporting him, you understand it. For most people who are already on that side of saying Colin Kaepernick has been wronged, you get it. You get he should be distrustful. You get that this is a relationship that you can't say based on your word, based on our history, you are doing this to do right by me. And so because I do sit on that side, I see the movements. But then you look at the other side. We set this up for you. There were 25 people or 25 teams who made sure that there were people there to see you. We were going to send these videos out to everybody else, and you thumbed your nose at us. You spat in our face. You spat in the faces of all those who I have heard that have been inside the NFL, who are people of color, who have fought for this, and you did something else. And so what happens is I start to look at the Stephen A's and the Eric Reids, and I look at the people who have different opinions about this, and I say to myself, if you can't see both sides, because I can, and I will say it a million times, I wore a Colin Kaepernick jersey on TV in September or October of 2016, when people were picking sides, when people were trying to figure out where they stood on it. I stood on that side from the beginning of time. But even in this, I can see how people who want to oppose him can find reasons too. If I'm him, do I sign the waiver? I don't. If I'm him, am I distrustful? I am. If I'm him, do I say, you know what? If I'm going to play in this league, I'm going to play in this league my way? I do. But you can also see on the other side of it that says, you know what? We have given you an opportunity we didn't owe you. We have given you a chance that you didn't have before this, and you didn't take advantage of it. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. And so I look at this and I say, it's so much bigger now than football. Colin Kaepernick is bigger than football. He's bigger than a league, not monetarily, right? Not from a media standpoint, but from an effect that he has on the world. Colin Kaepernick, the non-football player, is bigger than this. So, yes, he has the talent to play, but at what cost? What should he give up? What should he conform? How much compromise should he have to play this game? And if he does compromise, if he does choose to be different, if he does choose to walk away from some of the values, some of the displays, some of the things that he does, some of the things that he feels that need to be represented in order to represent a people that now believe in him, that now support him, what is he giving up for this game? And then you look at his supporters. You look at the people who were out there, whether it was Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which I am a member of, and which also Colin Kaepernick is a member of. If it was the people who came out with the I'm with Cap shirts, what do they look at? What do they value most? If it's Eric Reid, LSU Tiger, very intelligent, has now been started to be painted as the angry black man. And this is by other African Americans. When I see him go at Stephen A., when I see him and Stephen A. have these issues, I start to think to myself, okay, why is this happening? Why is one man standing on one side and another standing on another side, and they can't meet in the middle? What does that mean? How can two men see things so differently? And This is just my thoughts, and I'm going to step away from Colin Kaepernick for a second and try to give you at least my thought of Eric Reid and where he stands. Because, see, I have friends. I have friends who are closer than brothers. I have friends who I love not like family, but who are my family. And that seems to me to be where Eric Reid and Colin Kaepernick are. That seems to me to be the type of relationship that they had. And I'm going to be honest with you. If my friend steps out and gives up his dream, and his dream is lost, his career is lost, standing for something he means, standing for something he feels, standing for something that he inside of his heart feels like I would be wrong to not speak up and represent these people. If he loses his career for that, everything that stands against that for the rest of my life stands against me. Everything that's a part of that is now going away from his vision. If it's the Players Coalition and Malcolm Jenkins, if it's Stephen A. Smith saying that Colin Kaepernick doesn't really want to play this game, everything that goes against what I know about my friend now puts you in a position where you're an enemy of me. And everything I know about loyalty is to defend my friend. Everything I know about passion is to stand behind or stand in front of anything that could hinder, harm, or put my friend in danger, which makes you my enemy. So when Eric Reid tries to fight Malcolm Jenkins in the middle of the field because he feels like he cut Colin Kaepernick out of meetings with the NFL, that he stepped up into a movement that wasn't his own and settled it and compromised, when he has a problem with that, I get it. When Stephen A. starts to come out and say Colin Kaepernick doesn't want to play, when Stephen A. has these harsh words and goes out of his way to say them, that makes a video from his house to bash my brother, to go against my brother, to speak negatively against him, that's never going to sit all right with me. And it shouldn't sit all right with Eric Reid. I understand that level of loyalty. I understand that level of friendship. I don't want friends who are not like that. And so when he's pissed off, when he wants to fight, I get those things. And we don't have the right to tell Eric Reid he can't behave that way. Do I understand it puts him in peril? Do I understand that it makes people look at his career like the first time you can't play, the first time you do something that says you've lost a step, I may have to look elsewhere because I don't want to deal with this. I get that. But I also get not being able to internalize those feelings, not being able to compartmentalize enough to not fight for my friend, to not fight for my brother, to not fight for somebody I love, who said he was going to put $1 million of his own dollars into this movement and did it. He didn't do it and talk about it. He didn't do it and publicize it. He did it because he believed in his cause. He believed in it so much, he gave his career for it. When people were telling him, you have to stop this if you want to continue playing. And if they're friends like I'm friends with my friends, I was there for the whole thing. I was there to hear people advise him against it and him refuse, him continue to do it. So no, you're never going to be able to say anything about him that I'm not okay with. And you can't tell me that he's not speaking, he's not standing up for me because you don't know what he does for me. And this leads me to Colin Kaepernick. We want to tell him he has to be a certain thing. But here is the thing. Every man that stands up for a righteous fight doesn't suddenly become flawless. Because we choose to make Colin Kaepernick our champion, because he deserved it, because he stepped out and did something that many won't, doesn't mean he gets to be our chess piece. It doesn't mean he gets to be our pawn. It doesn't mean we get to say where he can do the most good. Because in that, so many people say, well, you can do more good if you're playing, or if you're playing, now your platform is bigger. That's not true. Colin Kaepernick's platform is forever. Colin Kaepernick's place in the world, his place in history is set. It's just his place in football that we don't know. And so when you think about his place in football, you say, what would Colin Kaepernick have to compromise in order to get that back? And I don't mean what would he have to do differently. I don't mean does Colin Kaepernick have to not kneel? Does Colin Kaepernick have to stand? Does Colin Kaepernick have to cut his hair? Does he have to stop wearing Kunta Kinte shirts? That's not what I mean. I mean, does he have to give up fighting, believing, and showing the world that above himself, that above playing quarterback in this league, he will stand for things that need to be represented by him? Because if he gives that up, he's no longer the Colin Kaepernick we know. The Colin Kaepernick that has to play quarterback in this league has to be the one that they kicked out, has to be the one that he feels like they colluded or that they blackballed to keep off of the fields. Colin Kaepernick can't come back and play quarterback as Russell Wilson. He can only be here as Colin Kaepernick. And we have to let him do that. Colin Kaepernick had a dream. From being a child, he wanted to be an NFL quarterback, and he achieved that dream. He was a starter in Super Bowls. He was a starter in the NFC Championship. He was a guy who had changed the game from the quarterback position, not as much, but much like we've seen Lamar Jackson do it. The plays were called differently. The plays looked differently. They were more successful because of his skill set. He had lived a dream, and that dream was changing the game. But then his passion came into play. And his passion was for a misrepresented people. His passion was for something bigger than himself. And his passion made him lose his dream. And so in that, we can't tell him how to continue to pursue that dream. I had somebody tell me the league's never going to let him play again. He should just give it up. And I told him, you can't tell that man to give up a dream or when to give up a dream or how to pursue a dream. But see, Colin Kaepernick wants his dream and still wants to be true to himself. And we have to allow him to do that. We don't get to criticize him. We don't get to have our opinions forced on him. And we don't get to make him what we want him to be. Because see, just because he's been for us in the sense of protecting us, fighting for us, that doesn't make him for us as our ultimate pawn and chess piece. So we can support Colin Kaepernick and what he did. We don't get to tell him how to do it. Because this man gave up his dream for his passion. And that's more than any of us have ever done for anything else. Thanks for tuning in. This was special to me. This is important to me. This is Ryan Clark, DB Precision's Face First. And this is me on Kaep. Appreciate you.
Played in the league for 13, I ain't gotta be favorite. 2 Super Bowls, Honolulu, I stood with the greatest. The thing is this, if never rich, I'm good with my neighbors. DB Precision, television, ain't asked for no favors. Numbers don't lie, neither do pictures, just look in the papers. No backing down or turning back, part 2 of the movie. Never the biggest, but it takes more than 2 just to move me. Ain't gotta like what I'm saying, just respect it, it's honest. Run through opponents, watch the film, it's effective, I promise. Sit back and grab your popcorn, watch me go to work and tackle all of these topics right here on Face First.